Welcome to the Musician, Technician, Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Elby Odom, and my co-host is Jeff Jaskowiak. Our mission is to interview successful music industry people and uncover the lifestyle of what it takes to be a middle-class music industry professional. Sure, everybody wants to hit the big leagues, make millions of dollars, and be world-renowned, but the reality is, few of us will ever reach that level of income or fame. We believe that true success for an artist is simply to earn a living doing something they love to do. Today, we're hanging with Larry Ortega, a gigging drummer who's toured the world, studio session player, drum instructor, composer, and MIDI programmer extraordinaire. In this podcast, Larry shares his wisdom of programming MIDI, thinking like a drummer, composing, being a gigging musician, and even thoughts on working out. You're like adding stuff and you're moving things around and you're changing velocities, right? Is that
right,
kind
yeah.
of like what's going through your brain when you're doing all that?
Yeah, the main thing is I'm trying to think of what the drummer would play. You know, what he would normally do. And a lot of times he would just mainly first, just keep the groove going and smooth because you don't know what else is going on. You know, and you don't want to take, if you're throwing in all kinds of riffs, it kind of takes away from which is the main focus, what might be the vocal part. Right. People are trying to listen to vocals and all they hear and they keep hearing drum riffs. Their attention all of a sudden keeps going to the drum riff, and they start losing And what you want to hear is you want to have the groove to be really sounding really cool, and then they have a little break in the vocal, throw the riff in there, and that's wow, that was cool.
So playing with the vocal.
Yeah, so you kind of base it around with all the parts that are going on, and that's what I try to tell them a lot of times with my students. Is like you have to listen to the whole picture. You can't just listen to what you're doing, and that's what a lot of musicians do. When they're playing, they're focused on what they're playing, and that's good because you want to focus on what you're playing. But you have to hear what everybody else is doing and see what is that adding to the music,
right?
Or if it's taking away, or if it's too much. That's the biggest thing. That's the hardest thing. That's why a lot of times I love drummers that just groove. You hear them they're grooving and it's like, wow, man, he's just into it. He's like really into the music. And then when it's time for him to do his thing, now he can take off and act like a maniac, And it's like, wow, now that's cool. Instead of guys who are just throwing in tons of stuff or every couple bars. It's like one of my favorite sayings is a blues player, a blues guitarist. He used to turn around and tell the drummer, he says, "Hey, I had my rolls for breakfast." And so in other words, you're telling the drummer, don't play any rolls or anything else, just play the groove, So I said, man, that should be a T-shirt. Yeah. Hey, I had my rolls for breakfast, so I don't need any. So and just groove. So I just mainly focus on that, That's what I was trying to get on this.
Earlier you were talking about like how, like with hi-hat velocities and stuff. I thought that was really fascinating. And you were talking about like ghost
notes, and the snare drum and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like that's what you were adding already, just like some stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, and you could it adds a little bit more to the feel of what you're playing. Instead of just going really loud on the hi-hat, you bring up the different velocity levels. And I've heard other drum programmers, they say, oh yeah, if you just mess with the velocities, you can get to that. And they get it good to a certain point, but they'll just mess maybe with the hi-hat or something, and they don't really think about maybe what the bass drum is actually playing or how they would play a riff on the tom.
Right.
They would play a riff on the tom, just go digga-digga-doo like that, and it wouldn't be like digga-digga-doo or something like that. You can do the same riff, but play it with a different way, a digga-digga-doo, something like that. You can do it in different ways, and what would sound really kind of cool the way to play it. And that's what kind of actually brings out. You could take a simple riff, but if you just play it a different way, like wow, that was kind of cool. And if you just played it normal, somebody guy would just say, yeah, okay, so what? So a lot of it has to do with how you play.
And that's what you're thinking when you're playing real drums.
Yeah,
you're approaching each.
Yeah, because then it's more of a surprise, and that's what makes the music. I think makes it kind of exciting. You didn't just like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. You're like, wow, that was really cool. And that's what makes it. And then all of a sudden another guy picks up on that, and all of a sudden you're doing it together. The next time around, you did it together, and now it sounds like. And that's what people are like, wow, how long have you guys been playing together? And they say, oh, about 10 minutes, That's like, what? You think you've been, playing together for years or something, And it's just everybody's listening to what they're doing, and it's a lot of fun now.
You were talking about just like when you would emphasize the hat, like you were saying like sometimes you'd emphasize the hat like with the snare drum, like is there a drummer just inherent drummer things that, like me not being a drummer, that
Right.
I wouldn't. And where do you put? You said you're going to add ghost notes. But where do you add those ghost notes?
Right.
And how many ghost notes?
And that all depends on the kind of groove that you're playing too. I mean, you could play a simple groove and just go doom dat doom dat like that, or you go doom dat dat like that. Make it all of a sudden you make it a little more funky, or doom dat something like that, and it just throwing that little ghost notes is like changes the whole feel of a groove, you know, and it could give it a totally different thing. Or you could do it like, or you can put those ghost notes on a tom or something, and then people are like, wow, that was kind of cool. I never even thought of doing that. You know, instead of put them on just all on the snare drum, which a lot of drummers, they would just do it on the snare.
So when you say ghost notes on a tom, is it like, how would you define it? Just a lighter hit?
Yeah, just really low, really low. It's like in between. It's almost like filler. It's almost be like a shaker would be, like in between beats. You know, you got the shaker going. Now it's gluing all the, instead of going, do you have a drummer going like, just playing eighth notes, but you put a shaker underneath. Now it's it's almost like that, you know, like kind of gluing all those eighth notes together.
Yeah.
And then you put the little ghost notes inside the and just throwing like a little ghost note here and there. Now it's making the whole groove into another thing.
Yes.
So it's like working all these parts together. It's like orchestrating.
Yeah.
You know, there was one drummer that used to do a lot of orchestrating in a rock band. I was just like, wow, I love the way this guy plays and writes. That was the drummer for Jethro Tull, Barrymore Barlow. He would just he approached his drumming almost like a concert band.
Really?
Like he would play his parts, and he'd play his buzz rolls on the snare drum and come into a groove, and then the little parts would come next to it, and he'd do like a little concert thing on the snare drum while the bass drum was going on, and it sounded like it was a 3-piece concert band playing, but he was playing it on the drum set. I was like, wow, what a cool way to approach playing a drum set.
Yeah,
It sounded like an ensemble rather than just a drummer, you know. So that was really cool. And at some parts, I used to go, wow, I wonder if he could pull that off live. And then I saw him live, and it was like, wow. Yeah, it just blew me away. He was way better, and, you know, a lot of people didn't realize how good he was. He was amazing. But, yeah. So, yeah, so that's why I started thinking that's why even when I put all my parts together, you can start throwing in extra stuff, but I always end up taking stuff out. And the more I take out, now all the parts I can hear clearly.
Yeah.
You know, you start paying more attention to parts. You know, when I used to throw in extra stuff and all that, and I know a guy too. Is like when we would do a recording session, and he went to drums. He says, "Wow, the drums sound good." So he have it really hot. Yeah. I'm going, yeah, that's cool, except it's way louder than the vocal. And he goes,
I like it.
He's like, yes, but I just really like the drums, you know. And I just said, no, you got to bring it down. And now it sounded was mixed, you know. It's like he's like, that's the thing. And it wouldn't just be the drums. It'd be, if I put a new shaker part in, it was like all of a sudden you hear. It was like, yeah, but the shaker sounds so cool. I said, no, yeah, but you have to mix it now. It's like, oh, okay. But you know, they always bury the shaker. I love the shaker. I said, yes, but it has to be mixed. Oh, okay, fine. So, yeah. I know a guy who just does that all the time. Every time. And if you add it in a harmonica part, then the harmonica would be really loud. It's just so cool. It sounds so good. Yes, but you have to mix it.
The last thing was.
Yes, whatever the last thing was. That sounds cool. Put it up. Turn it up. It's drowning out everything else. I don't care.
Everything is red on the meters.
It's like, oh, this is like, I like the cymbal swell. Put it real loud. Shh. Like blast out everybody, the whole thing. Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah. So yeah, this is. But I think this is with the Groove Monkey and all those. I mean, it's awesome starting points for a lot of. And even if they throw in like a lot of times, I think it wasn't just some of the things. I think they approached it in different ways. Some of them they just lay down the groove, and that's cool because that's what you want. You don't want anything fancy or nothing. You just want the groove going. But some of them they put in there and they'll put in extra notes and they'll throw in just to show you what you can do in there. And a lot of that times I would take those out, maybe use that groove what he just did every other bar or every third bar. And that would be cool then, because then it's like you're showing, you got a nice groove going, a little variation, and it goes back in the groove. That's something more you want. Then You know, I think a lot of they use it as a starting point, but a lot of people don't know. They don't get. They think, oh, they'll just put that in there, and everything sounds the same every time around.
Yeah, and see, the thing about the Groove Monkeys is that they have some really great fills, too.
Oh,
and so does
yeah.
Superior Drummer.
Yeah.
You know, you've got all those lists of, like, okay, here's the groove, but here's the fills for that groove.
Right, and
you know, so people are, you know, kind of cutting and pasting.
Right.
Which is better than it's ever been.
And the great thing is they got it there. So I mean, all you have to do is like, well, this is like, I mean, if you find a cool groove, let's say like, oh, I like this part right here. See, like here, I get this, like it's like a box thing. You just like that. You just say, oh, just circle all that and copy it, and then just drag it wherever you want, throw it in there, you know, and just put it as in the MIDI groove in the thing. And a lot of times, though, what I would do is, I mean, if I took out a basic a groove, which I'll probably do, is like I'll just drag one out of the Groove Monkey. I did that once. I was just like, I found an eighth note groove on the hi-hat, just do that, do that. And I listened to that, and I was telling you like that. The hi-hat was like, all one volume, kind of loud. And I'm thinking, well, that's not really the way a drummer would play it. I mean, you know, it looked like a machine or something. He said you would play it, especially if you're getting into it, you'd be playing more like, you know, like kind of grooving into it. So, you know, and the thing is, once you get all the parts kind of set and all that, then you could save it as a preset and say, now I have a good starting point. And then use that all the time. And just like, and I would use that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. A lot of times, all you want to lay the idea down. And you could always go back. See, that's the first thing. I heard that from a writer, Ray Bradbury. One time he says, don't worry about all the mistakes or anything like that. He says, get your story down first. What you're trying to accomplish. What's the main thing you want to try? He says, you know, put all this stuff and just lay it down. It says, then you can go back later and start, okay, this sounds better, let's fix that part, let's fix that. And now you start, you know, analyzing what you've done. But get all the story down, you know, get everything down together. So you just, you know, it doesn't have to be fancy drums or anything like that. Just get all the grooves out. I like that. You got the fills and the verses. You can throw a verse, there's a fill, there's a nice transition there. Maybe you don't like the transition, you want it a little simpler. Instead of do-do-do-do-do-do-do, yeah, you might do-do-do-do. You just want a nice simple groove, you know, change into it. You can change that later. But just throw it all in there so everything's all there. And then you can put all your parts down, say, all right, cool, I got the song, everything like that. And then you can go down there and start tweaking how everything is. And then especially when you put all the music together, you might want to change it again, because now you hear it and say, wow, now I want it a little bit, I'd rather have this instead of a do. I want to build up there, you know? It's like, so you never know. You never wonder where the music's going to take you, which is cool. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the cool part. There's a lot of times I would start a song off, and I have it like the beginning part of it, and I'm like, wow, that sounds weird. It's just like a 3-bar idea or something like that. And when the song's done, I was like, man, it's nowhere near what it was started off. But that's where the song eventually took me. You know, you start adding this and say, wow, this is cool. Oh, maybe I should do this with the drums. Oh, and try this. And it just keeps evolving until something, and you're just like, wow, it's crazy.
So what I'm taking from that is you're saying don't get hung up in the details when you're first going. Like,
right.
Just write the story.
Right. And that's what I think these MIDI files are awesome for.
Yeah.
They're perfect for getting your song down. And sometimes it's just sometimes it might be the perfect thing. It's just like you lay it in there and say, wow, that sounds great. I just like the way the groove is, just like that. So it's a great way to get the song started, you know, and work with that. A lot of times I won't even start with the drums. I'll start with just like an idea of like a melody or a synth rhythm or something like that, and start with that. Or maybe I have a cool bass part, and then I'll just throw some drums down there, and I'll just make a simple drum beat like that. And as soon as I start throwing chords in, I'll say, whoa, now it's changing again, and now I've got to feel it for doing something else, you know. But I know, you know, what's really cool is if you got a good melody in your head, then that seems to help a lot. You know, if you come up with a melody and then see if you can put chords to the melody. Because once you start putting chords to the melody, it'll take it to another place altogether again. Yeah. You're like, wow, instead of just doing the 4-5-1 or something like that, you go, oh, augment this and go like here and this. Wow, and then maybe, you know, with this chord going here, it could go to here. Now I can do this with the melody and add an extra bar on, and now it's way different than everybody else's song. Than a simple thing, you know, add an extra bar on or something. Some people you hear on songs, some people add a bar of 2/4 and make it the bar, instead of 4/4, it's 6/4 for that one measure. And you're like, oh, that's cool. It makes it a little different, you know. So things like that sound really good. But yeah, when you're laying the drum grooves down though, I just would start. I mean, I usually start with real basic.
A lot of times you'll hear guys talking about, you know, that guy's got a, you know, like a serious backbeat, or like it feels like he's playing, you know, behind the beat.
Right.
Like like how do you address that when you're, and what does that mean to you as a drummer? Because because I'm a guitar player, I'm not even sure how to interpret that sometimes.
Right.
Like is a guy actually playing behind the beat, or
yeah,
is it
there's ways, and each way sounds really good for certain reasons. I mean, I've heard things where it's especially on a lot of recording sessions, the drummer's laying down like a groove, and the band might be pushing it, but the drummer's trying to keep it steady. It ends up being a little bit behind the beat, but it still sounds really good. Yeah. And then when you play live, sometimes drummer might be pushing along too, and he might be like a little on top of the beat, but live it just gave it more excitement. It's still not like rushing or anything because they're still together. Yeah. So there's different ways of playing, and some players will play right on, and then you get like Chick Corea or something, or Dave Weckl, where they're playing like so on the beat that it almost gets to the point where it doesn't sound real anymore. It sounds like everything was programmed because it's just perfect.
It's so perfectly.
Yeah, it's just like, and that's like playing right on the money. It's like it's like weird. It's like holy cow.
So when
weird.
you're thinking like of playing ahead of the beat, is it you're playing all the drums ahead of the beat, or you have certain drums you're playing ahead, and you're certain things you're kind of staying?
Yeah, and it depends on the part of the song you're playing and the section. I mean, a lot of times it might just be the snare part, or the maybe the bass drum and the hi-hat and the snare, and it just might be for the verse or something you're playing like hell on the beat, and then when you play the fill, it might be more relaxed. Or something like that. It depends on how you're feeling. I guess you're feeling on when you're playing with the song. Because sometimes you play out of the beat. I know some guys, guitar players and keyboard players, who like to play behind the beat. And sometimes it sounds cool if you do it right. It's almost like an art form. It's like especially jazz players. You can hear them where they're playing and they're like laid back, but it just sounds like, wow, that sounds so smooth. And then there's ways to play it where it doesn't sound right, where it sounds like now you just sound like you're behind the band. You sound like you're like the band's passing you up, And I know a couple of guys who used to do that, and we'd be in the studio, and they would get to the keyboard player and says, all right, you're too far behind. I said, I know what you're doing, but you're not with the band anymore. Oh, okay. Because they're trying to get that feel, but they're almost like pushing it or something.
There's like a limitation.
Yeah, it's like a limit. And it's with the hot jazz players, they just know how to do it. It's like they're not trying to do it, it automatically happens. It's like a feel. Yeah. And that's the same way, I've heard that, and behind the beat, I've heard that with Latin players too. They're just amazing. Like the band Irakiri and Malo, where there's the drummer just playing, and he's just playing like a playing all these weird stuff, and it almost sounds like he's not with it, but it's right. It still sounds so good. It's working for some reason, and it's like an art form to get it to pull it off right. Yeah, Now, if you're just laying down a groove, it could just be like that, Because some guys, they're playing all together, and the drummer's just laying down the groove and just keep it steady. Now it might be steady right there, and the man might be pushing it a little bit, so it sounds like the drummer's behind the beat. Right. So there's all different kinds of reasons why it would sound that way. Yeah. And then there's might be a funk tune where you hear it, and the drummer sounds like he's right on it, and he's almost like ahead of the beat. Yeah. And it's actually and the band is kind of laying back where the drummer's pushing it, and it still sounds good because it's another way of playing, Yeah. And you almost have to feel it,
So in essence, the question is a little bit complicated because you're talking about how all the players play together.
Right.
It's not necessarily the drummer always making a conscious decision. Right. I'm going to play behind. Maybe it's the band's playing ahead, right. or vice versa.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times they can all feel it. Especially if they're really good players and they're listening to each other, and they can kind of feel something like that, and it could change at different points. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Is there ever a time when you're programming that you would take just the snare drums and push them? Push them back.
And that's the thing. When I was talking to Jeff, a lot of times when I programmed, I would program I wouldn't put all the parts on one file, MIDI file, like playing the snare drum, bass drum, snare, all the parts on one measure, one line. I would separate all the parts, put the bass drum on one, then copy and paste another MIDI channel, put the snare drum parts on that, and all that, and then say, okay, this one section, I want the snare to be a little on top of the beat. Well, I can go back there and adjust the cue of the drums. You you can make the parts delay or go back a little bit or go forward a little bit. Well, I could push those, and make them just a little bit more forward on this one section like that.
Just
for that
the
one
entire drums, or just
just the snare part.
Just the snare drum.
Because you have it isolated.
Yeah, I have it isolated, so I can just go there
I see.
and I say, okay, this part right here, because like maybe during the verse, I like the snare being laid back. So this sounds like, wow, it's right in the pocket. Now in the bridge, I want it to kind of like snap a little bit more. I can push the snare up on a little bit on that, and it sounds like that, especially if they're doing a fast line. And if it's laid back, it'll sound almost like it's behind. But if you push it, it's going to sound boom. Now you got them both right on real super tight together. So there's different ways, on different sections of it.
So now, when you do that, you're doing that in FL, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have, like, say, for example, like we have this part where it has just basically 3 or 4 parts.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a function that you could select all those and say split, and they just go into separate, tracks on their own? Like
No,
split?
no. The only way I would have to do it, I would just copy and paste everything, and just go to another track, paste it all, and then go to another track, paste it all, and go on it, and then just go, and then just go through it. Yeah, then I just go back and grab all the snare parts in one time, delete. Go to the next one, grab all the bass drum parts, and just select them all.
Don't they have
Yeah,
a splitter?
you can do it quick in Pro Tools.
Yeah, where you just have a thing like that and just go
splits them all
splits them
apart
out.
for you.
Oh.
And it's out there like that.
That's cool.
Does Ableton have that too?
I can't verify that or
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah, because that would make it easier to see. See, then the cool thing, at least in Pro Tools, you have a MIDI editor in each one of those separate lines, especially if you did that.
Right.
Would be a different color.
Right.
So you could see them all together like this.
Right.
But they would still actually be, you could say, I only want to work on the snare. So
Right.
you could just pick that one and do your little tricks. Now, do you have some kind of functionality that's kind of says, okay, get a little, you said you were almost like looking like you used a dial. Do you have like a thing where it comes before like the beat or after the beat? Do you have like a quicken thing? So like say for example you split out all the snares on this.
Yeah.
And do you just take them and just drag them a little ahead? All of
Well,
them?
I could do it. Yeah, you could do it different ways. You could do it that way where I just go on with the mouse and select all the snare parts, and then instead of like take them off the grid, because usually you have everything on a grid.
Right.
Well, you just put it on none.
Right.
And then just go in there and just move everything ahead. Okay. And like on the parts like over here, let's see, we go on the processing now. I would go to like the tools menu. You got the different things on top. You got the program itself.
Yeah.
Then you got like a settings tab, or no, this is like a processing tab.
Okay.
And also it's got a settings tab on here, and you got
This
the
is
MIDI
right.
imports on there.
This is Stephen Slate stuff here.
Yeah, this is all Steven
But
C.
that's-
But this is a wrapper. Is from FL Studio.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, this is a wrapper from FL Studio. So they got like a tab up here for it's got settings and a processing. Like when you're going to render it, it'll send all these parts on here. And sometimes you'll have notify about rendering modes. Sometimes you'll have all the allow threaded processing settings. And then they have a wrench here, kind of a tool tab. Now here's the timing. So if here's a timing thing. So see, I can go here and make everything push back. Now it's taking it from on the timing and it's going back and farther. So now everything's all the timing on here, so you can make it, everything's like here. So now I say if I have a program, and if I start from this, let's go right to here, and then I start laying all the parts down, then I would copy and paste this, and every time I lay a new part in, I would just set it to this. I would set it to right to like the middle.
Okay.
And then if I say, well, hey, one part's like I put in a string section part, and the strings are way behind.
Yeah.
I can say, okay, I'll go to the strings, and I'll just go, and I'll pull it up, and all of a sudden, now it's right with the song again. That's cool.
So this is an FL Studio functionality.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I could do that, and I could just and then I could have all the parts, so you can make them. Or a lot of times, Stylus RMX, sometimes the shakers, when you play the shaker parts, they'll seem like they're a little bit behind. So with that, and I can just pull them a little bit forward, and I'm like, oh, there it is, right there, and it tightens it all of a sudden. Now they're right with the drums and all that, and I was like, okay, cool. So you can do that, but then you'd have to every time you do that, you have to start. Then every time you'd have to start the song where you got the timing, you put it like right in the middle. Then you can go forward or backward. Because normally default, it'll just be right here, and then you can only go backward.
Oh, I see.
See, so you would actually have to start all your program when you go out here, and then every time. Well, the thing is, every time you open up a program, you just go up to there, and see the cool part is, well, how do you get exactly what you want? You right click it, and you copy value. You know, just copy the value and you just paste it into the next
Can you
one.
create that wrapper as a template? And
Yeah.
Just put it right
Now that, I think you might be able to save it as a template too. I think you could save that. But I'm not real sure.
But that's cool. I haven't seen
Yeah.
that before.
Yeah.
That's a FL thing that's kind of unique to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Now I've seen other programs. I'm not sure, but I've heard. I don't know if it was Logic. I think it might have been Logic, where they could say, okay, they especially like some of the new strings, sampled string orchestras, where they're playing it, and if they drag and say put it in there and you put in your stuff, and then you put it in with your song, all the string parts are like behind, and they say, okay, it's behind 300 something or other, whatever it is, milliseconds, 300 milliseconds or something like that. So they go into Logic and they go minus 300 milliseconds. Now when they play the song back, it plays it perfect. I'm like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I said, I kind of wish they had more like that in FL Studio, instead of having to go change everything. I could just type in whatever I wanted, because they said it's exactly like that. They could just type in whatever and all the strings parts are perfect. Like, and they don't have to mess with anything. I'm like, wow.
Isn't that like an offset function?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really cool. But
That's awesome. So then you're going to do your song from Rule of Four, maybe this one. Any other ideas do you have?
I was thinking about maybe just to see if I can maybe just program. Well, when I first got in with Sonic Reality out of Florida, they came out with some drum programs. I told you they were like sampling all these cool drummers and all that.
Yeah.
So I took their stuff and I wrote it like a little drum solo, and I sent it to them, and they went, "Wow!" They went, "Holy cow!" They said, "What drum triggering system are you using? That was really good." I said, "I used it. I just did it with a mouse." And the guy was like silent. He's like, no. He's like, yeah. He's good. Yeah.
Logitech.
Yeah. He was like, going, no, really, what did you use? Like, no, I just used a mouse. He goes, what? I said, well, I know I'm a drummer. I know exactly how to do it. I just program all the parts in. And I went from one drum set to another drum set, and I just kind of combined different sets. I had a rock set, so I would go from a heavy rock beat into into this reggae thing, this freaky reggae beat, and then to a fusion set, to a or whatever. And I just sent it to him. And he's like, wow, you're writing our demos. He says, here, take it. He just gave me all their stuff for free. So I was like, that's how I got to meet him. So
What I'm hearing here is this, am I hearing a possibility of writing some drum solos with?
Yeah, I was figuring. And the cool thing is, then you could take the solo and then you can say, oh, well, let me hear what it sounds like with this set, and then that's the cool part with this.
Oh, that'd be cool.
You can just change any drum set you want and hear what it sounded like on that set, which is really cool.
Come to this clinic next week.
Yeah, so that's the cool part.
Huh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I'd come home. I'd be on the road, and I'd come home and I'd write stuff. And I had the headphones on. I remember my ma used to crack up. She goes, it's like all night long. She'd hear it. It was just like, and no music, just like banging on the piano keyboards, electronic keyboards, and it would be like all night long. She would hear that stuff, and I'd have the headphones on. You'd like getting into it. And nobody could hear nothing, but it sounded like probably garbage, like Maniac. And then and I'd come home and I'd send them to Jeff or something like that. And then that one time he comes and he goes, here's all these CDs. I'm like, I forgot I even did half these songs.
wow.
I don't remember.
Some great songs.
Yeah, it was some crazy stuff, man. It was like really nuts. I remember I wrote one song for Julie. I was like a waltz. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Julie. I was like, I'd come home and I'd be in jazz mode, like three or four weird jazz tunes, and then I was writing some fusion stuff. Then I'd write some rock stuff, and then I'd be like all the kind of, depending on what kind of music I was listening to at the time.
Now, do you have the stuff that you've done when you do it on computer? When you save it, do you save like the MIDI files, the whole thing's, or do you just save the finished product? Because I remember ages ago when you would show me, listen to these 7 or 8 tunes, and they would be all in like a WAV file form.
Yeah.
But do you have any of those other?
A lot of
saved?
those, I still have them. But the only problems I would have now is I've done them on old keyboards that I don't even own anymore. Some of them.
Yeah,
so,
you used to have the Triton.
Yeah, I used to have the Triton. I had a bunch of different ones. I had a Roland. I had a couple of Korgs.
M1 at one time?
Yeah, I had the M1 at one time. And now they have the software version of the M1. So at least now they have an M1 a software version of that. And now so I don't even own those keyboards anymore, so I couldn't even like pull all those
Oh,
parts up.
so they were stored internally on the keyboard.
Yeah, so it's like MIDI part, and then you'd have to go to the keyboard, pull up the patches on the keyboard because it would actually play the keyboard.
Oh.
So a lot of those stuff like that, you know, and yeah, some of those I was like, and I would have thought ahead of time, I would have recorded the keyboard itself and saved it as a WAV file. Then you would always had the part.
Right.
Because you could always remix it or whatever. But now I can't even do that. But if you go find an old keyboard, you might be able to pull those parts back up. Because I kind of messed with a lot with the stock patches, so I didn't really, you know, you can pull up one of the stock patches and still come up with some of the stuff. I wrote this one crazy thing. It was I saw three ships come sailing in. It was like right when the Omnisphere first came out. And it was like, what's this? And I made this crazy version of that. And I sent it in over there. And I got like 4 calls from California for
You sent it to Omnisphere?
I sent it to Eric, the guy who owns Spectrasonics.
Oh, okay.
And then he said, man, I played it for a bunch of people. And I got like 4 emails from like all 4 different fusion bands in California wanted me to see if I go, hey man, when you want to come out here? And all this stuff. I'm like, no, I don't. Yeah, it was crazy but I was like, it was just, you know, I just wanted to see what all the cool stuff you could do. I mean, it had guitars and stuff and everything on there.
What are some of the sample libraries you have that you use a lot?
Well, now it's all. I mean, it depends. I mean, I have what kind of a mood. Lately I've been playing so much. I haven't had time to do anything for a long time. But every now and then for a while I was like wanted to see what I could do with Omnisphere and Trillion, just to see what it's Spectrasonics. So I wrote those songs like that you hear. And before that, it was Tone Hammer and now Tone Hammer now it's called 8Dio, 8Dio and Sound Iron. They split up.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, those guys, when Tone Hammer first started, they were selling amazing sample products for like $8 and $10, and I was like, wow, I buy it. Oh, and tons of people were buying it. It was really just they'd sample all kinds of crazy stuff, and events, and some of the things might be like $20 or $30, but it's affordable. You could buy those and write some really cool stuff. And eventually they wanted to go different, you know, to add different ideas of what they wanted to do and all that. And they wanted to started getting a bigger, you know, they had so many clients, they were probably making some good money. It says, hey, well, let's maybe sample choirs and maybe let's try sampling an orchestra or you know, so that's when 8Dio started sampling full strings, you know, string sections and orchestras and now he's into brass and all kinds of cool stuff and regular pianos and so 8Dio's amazing and the other guy was that owned the company. They have a company called Sound Iron, so he started doing his own thing, and they kind of split the library, the Tone Hammer library. They split it up, and he took one. You know, they took that, and they got that, and then another company was Heaviosity out of New York, and that's all percussion. They do TV and movie scores. So I you know, and that was my thing. I used to download their software and then write some stuff with it, and I'd send it to them, and then they started sending me all their stuff. So I was good at So I started good at programming their stuff. You know, I would come back, and they would just crack up. It's just like they'd say, "Wow, we didn't intend this product to be used like that." You know, as we used it for like a trailer or something like that. He says, "You're writing these weird actual songs and stuff with it." Right. He said, "That's not even what it's intended for." So they were like, "Wow, man, here, take our stuff." So they would give me. So I would just kept, you know, here, write some stuff for us. So I kept doing that. You know.
Didn't you win a contest? What was the contest that you won?
That was a Spectrasonics. Yeah, that was the one when Omnisphere first came out. That was it. They had to send out loops, 4-bar loops of their synth, and I chopped it up and wrote a song in 6/8 for a marching drum line. So I used all their samples, all their synth sounds and all that, and just incorporated it into a drum line. So they were like really good. They said, "Wow, that's really unique," you know. And the other one, I took it and I kind of took the sounds and made it into a weird art piece. It was kind of weird. It's kind of all stuttering and all very lots of rhythm oriented. Whereas, you know, and parts where, you know, instead of going like something like that. Instead of going, whatever like this. So like it start off your triplet and going to eighth notes and back into a real slow, quarter note triplet or something. And that parts like that would fade in and fade back out, and another part was going on or something. So it was real weird rhythms, and so I ended up winning like I won like twice on that contest.
And then they said, no more.
Yeah, so they just gave me their stuff. And then Heaviosity, they started giving me their stuff. And then Sample Tank, IK Multimedia, I was writing their demos for Sample Tank. And that's how they ended up sending me to the NAMM show. And then, so I got to finally get to meet a lot of guys. Because, I mean, I guess the owner's from France. So they're actually based out of France. But they have a guy, Dave Kersner, who's also a heavy-duty keyboard programmer and guy he's got his own company called Sonic Reality out of Florida. And they actually sampled, I mean, they got together with Neil Peart and Danny Gottlieb and all these guys, and they went and sampled, they had the drummer in, sampled their drum sets.
With them playing?
With them playing it, actually playing the samples themselves. Wow. Terry Bozzio, I mean, they sampled some heavy-duty cats. And the guys brought their own drum set in, they sampled it and all that, and they started selling their samples and stuff, and that was Sonic Reality. And I was doing a lot of the MIDI files for Sonic Reality then. Because, and he was also head spokesman for IK Multimedia for Sample Tank. So they're the ones that brought me in to do the stuff for IK Multimedia and Sample Tank and that. So I was working with all those companies. There was a company out of Amsterdam, Rob Pappin. And he came up with a couple. He was another big synth programmer, and I started doing all of his stuff. But a lot of his songs I was writing, I was like Metheny. When I got his samples, I was writing stuff that was kind of Metheny influenced. So he was like really into that. So he kept sending. And I ended up sending with so many companies sending me their stuff that I couldn't put it on my computer anymore. I didn't have no room.
You have dongles on your dongles.
Yeah. Oh, it's just ridiculous. It got crazy where they were saying, I was like, oh, this one's only 60 gigabytes, and this one's another, and that's 100 gigabytes. And back then, I mean, gigabytes, you're talking like, well, that's ridiculous. Who's going to use that? And now we're, terabytes, so and people are saying, oh, terabytes, who's going to use, that's ridiculous. And that's going to go right out the window. So it's ridiculous. But now it's you could say. I remember they used to sample the London Symphony Orchestra, and they had to run it off of 4 to 6 computers. Now you can run the whole thing off of one regular PC computer. It's crazy. All the stuff they're getting now. So yeah. So.
Sort of used for strings mostly these days.
Oh man, I really still love LA Scoring Strings or LA Studio Strings. It's by Audio Bro, and they're really good. I mean they made it into DVC sections where they got like the violins A, violins B, violas, and each one you could have, one player, solo player, or 2 or 3 players, and then you could stack 3 players from that and 3 players from violas, and then make a 6-player thing, or you could have 6 players and 6 players and make it a 12-player thing, and then that's kind of the way. I mean, when you play the thing that they got a little criticism was. When you play their parts by themselves, you hear a little bit more of the intonation problems. But like a real string section, you would normally hear those. But when they play all together, you don't really hear it. But if they would just, a lot of times if they kept playing, they would say, okay, let's do that, let's do it again. All right, intonation there. They would keep taking takes and takes and takes till it's perfect. But if you do it live, a lot of times you're going to have all these problems. They just go for it. It's live, and that's the way he recorded it. But now, if you put all the parts together, it sounds amazing, and you can do everything with it, and you can make it sound unbelievable. But now the companies every year they're getting better and more amazing with this stuff. So, I mean, the Cinestrings. They just came out with a new one with studio strings that are just amazing too, and another company's coming out with another one. And Berlin Tools, they're another company. It's just the stuff they're coming. They released a brass sampling thing that you run in Contact, And it's just amazing. Sounds like a Hollywood studio, and they make it. You can build your orchestra. So they took 4 trumpets, but they sampled each trumpet player by himself. So you could sample it and make it a duet, a trio, or all 4, and the same way with the trombone, same way with the horns. So you can actually build your own orchestra however you want it. So it's crazy.
Small one or a big one.
Right, and it's because most of the time when you try to get it, you're getting all this stuff. You're stuck with that many players every time you write, So this way you can get it,
Thin it out a little bit.
Yeah, you can thin it out. So it's just amazing.
Let me ask you this, because we've talked about this in the past. You said, and again, what is like the role of, the will and imagination and creating? When you create your parts, do you always hear them in your head first before you go after them? For the most part, I mean, is that like? Because I remember you said once, he says, if I can think it, I most likely can play it.
Yeah.
Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll just come up with an idea in my head, and I said I used to think I should have a recorder. For one point I bought a little recorder so you could just sing it into a recorder so you wouldn't forget it, and then you could take it home and mess with it. But yeah, I mean, and you never know I would try to come up. I didn't maybe have a melody in my head or something like that, and I'd try to lay it down. And then, but then the cool thing is they got so many cool software programs out. I would try maybe I should use this instead of using with a synth. Maybe make that a bell part. And so I would look for cool bells, and I would say, "Wow, cool!" Now the bell part would sound really cool, and I would say, "Wow, that would sound maybe really cool with a marimba." And it ended up being a percussion piece, and I'm like, well, I wasn't even trying to write a percussion piece, and I'm like, going, "Wow!" So that was really cool. So you never know what's. But yeah, I mean, I never know I would start with a piece and then see what's going to happen with it.
So you're inspired by different things. Sometimes you go and you go like a sound and you go after that. Sometimes you'll find a rhythm or a pattern in our RMX and go after that. Sometimes you actually hear something in your head and say, okay, I'm going to go and flesh that out somehow.
Yeah, or you know what I used to do? A lot of times I would go in there and I would just try to write down a riff. Sometimes I'll put in a riff and it's like, and I would put that in there and just start going through presets on different synths and I'd say what would sound cool. Yeah. And it might be going through different stuff, and it might end up being a bass part that sounded really cool. I say, okay, now that's where I'll start with the bass. Maybe I'll start with the bass. Now, what would sound cool on top of the bass or something like that, And maybe just use that on one section of a song or something, Right. And a lot of times you could have ideas, so you never know what's good, where you get the idea from. Or sometimes I would have like the idea with the Tom Waits thing, where you just want a weird groove, and how is it that? And what I would think. Maybe I want an upright bass on this. And I would start with an upright bass, and I said, well, that sounds cool, but maybe then you start looking for weird sounding basses, and then you'd come up with something really cool, and you're like, oh, that sounds better. Nobody sounds like that. And then you just start working with that, and then I would come up with some weird stuff, and I started writing. I started working with a piece I started writing. It was kind of weird, and then I started even coming up with vocal lines, and I'm thinking, what would be a good thing that would fit this song? And I'm thinking, well, a musician being out on a Saturday night, and he's got to do this every week, and he's like, and why is he doing it? Just to pay his bills. And that's what the whole song was about. It was weird, and just, and it's like he has to bang everything and everything, just so he got there and trying to pay his bills,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, and I wasn't even trying to write something like that. It was just like, I just ended up coming out like that, but that was cool.
Huh. Well, I like that theme, because one of the reasons that we wanted to do this podcast was to just talk to people who make a living doing music and aren't necessarily playing arenas, but you just kind of hit it on the head a little bit. Like sometimes you're playing just to pay the bills, but I'd be interested, because we didn't really ask you on microphone, like just what you're doing right now, like gigging wise and writing wise, and like just what you're up to. I'm just just give us an overview of.
Well, right now it's still play with the orchestra on the weekends, and they're usually booked almost a year in advance. So I I
It's
try.
about as steady as it gets for
Yeah.
a musician gigging. I mean,
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing, and I known the guy forever. So, and they usually, like, I mean, they're already booked halfway through the 17. They're already probably booking into the
Summer.
November, December.
Oh, wow.
They're going all the way to the end of that, and the gigs will come in too during the year as it's going on, and then I try to fill in all the dates around that. And I do a house gig on Thursdays, and then fill in. I already got 2 bands that are trying to fill in Fridays and Sundays. So then, it would get too much more than that. It'd be like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You gotta have. I get to the point where I'm trying to have to program at least one day off.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta have that one day where you can sit around and just like, oh, okay, let's say, okay, thank you, Lord, for letting me be here, and all that, and do your thanks and all that.
Yeah.
And it's because it just can get way over, too much.
Yeah, sure.
And plus you gotta have that one day which is, okay, that's the day I have to mow the grass, do the laundry,
Fix the car.
yeah, fix the car, do all the other crazy stuff too. So, and then I teach like all day Monday and Tuesday, and then I go to people's houses and I drive around and teach like sometimes on Wednesdays, on Thursdays, on Fridays, sometimes on Sunday, depending on. I kind of make it easy for them, whatever what's good for them. So. But that can get way out of hand too, then you got people like, well, can you come in here? And then you're trying to drive from here and ride over there just for a half hour and then drive all the way back to the city, and then you got to come back home and do a lesson, then you got to go over to Schaumburg, and you're like, all right, this is getting out of hand, It's like my poor car is like it's on its last legs, like, all right, I got to buy new tires again, It's like so. Jeff knows the trials and errors of vehicles. I mean, we all do. We've all been through the crazy vehicles, man.
Some stories from Wisconsin. Oh, God.
Oh, man. I still remember all the old vans and stuff we used to drive around. Man, that was crazy back then. We were traveling crazy people. But, so I've been doing all that. I mean, before that, I toured the world for like 7, 8 years, almost 10 years. And got to play with a lot of big artists and play with all over. But remember the first time they said I was just getting out of college, just out of Joliet Junior College when I first got out. And a guy says, "Hey, we're gonna tour Canada for like 2 or 3 months," and I was all that, and I said, "All right." So I went up to Canada and Calgary and Alberta and all that, and I was with that, and then come back to the States, and we go back to Canada. So it was just, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool, I was doing all that. And then out of that, I joined the Joanna Connor band. She's like, first thing she said, she's going, "You got a passport." She says, "Our first gig is 2 months in Japan." And I was like, all right, now we're talking something different. So that was like, that was Japan, and then we did like 3 or 4 of her albums over in Europe. We recorded like in Berlin, like the 1 year after the wall came down, we recorded in Berlin, and then we recorded in Amsterdam and recorded in Paris. So we got to play all them places, and then we've been to Spain, been to Italy, been to Poland. Got to places that I normally would never even thought about even trying to go play, Right. There was a couple places we were supposed to play, and it was just it got real crazy with the, all political things going on and all that, so it got a little dangerous, so they had to cancel a lot of tours, but so I got to play a lot of those places and all that stuff. Then I came back here and I joined the orchestra. So and then I was playing with that and all that. So
So you've been keeping busy.
yeah, so it's been it's kind of nonstop, and it's crazy with it's like anything, especially when you're trying to do that. You have your high spots and your low spots where it's slow, and some winters there's nothing's happening, or if everything decides to break down at the same time. It's like, see, you put like $4 or $5 grand away and then gone 1 month. Every year just blow it all just to fix stuff. You're like, all right, back here, start again, So it's like getting everything, And then I took care of my dad for a long time. There was a lot of stuff with that. So it was kind of expensive. But.
Good. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. You wouldn't trade it for the world. Except maybe the next time you'd be like a flute player or clarinet, carrying drums around.
That's why Joe.
It's
That's why as soon as
the harmonica.
he saw those guys playing the harmonica, the Wolfpack. You went, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. You say, who wants to carry all that stuff around? Yeah. Each year goes by like, oh man. Well, this now, like I had to get back on the treadmill and start doing I was doing push-ups again and doing the weights. Because man, it at least keeps you involved. Because man, I'll tell you now, you get that point where you want to pick up all the hardware and all that, and you're not ready for it. There goes your back. You know, it's like you can get that point where you can sneeze the wrong way and everything's your life's messed up for 2-3 weeks. So yeah, so you got to try to keep it going. Are you still hauling like PAs and stuff around and all that?
As little as possible.
Yeah, I remember back in the Wolfpack days.
Yeah.
No, Wolfpack days, you were hauling tons of stuff around, man.
Well, they did a lot lately, but I've been trying to get into the vibe of having the students go, okay, no, there, you're setting it up. You tear it down, you put it away.
Yeah, they do.
It's
Yeah.
part of the gig, right?
Yeah. And so it helps having LB on board, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Because we both can say, hey, go get that. You know, so,
Nice.
yeah, so.
How often do you work out there? I mean, are you on a routine?
I have to do it every day. I do it like every day. I have
You
to
work
do at
out
least a
every
little
day?
bit, at least to do a stretch and get on a treadmill and maybe maybe work on arms for a little bit or just sit. I do sit-ups. Sometimes I'll do sit-ups just on my bed so I don't mess my back up. You can do it on the ground sometimes. You know, even if you try to do it the right, I don't have pads or anything like that. Or I got carpeting in the living room. So sometimes you just do it in the bed because it's like it's nice and soft. You just work on your stomach or whatever, just like try to get a lot of those muscles from just picking up stuff, And then I do squats and like you're going to pick stuff up. It's like, yeah, a lot of the muscles, because sometimes you can work out, but you're not getting the muscles that you're actually using when you're picking stuff up,
Right.
So I always try to act like this is, if you bend over all the way and pick something up, I'm like, all right, you got to work on that right there. The doctor told me, he says, if you ever something hurts right away, he says, stretch right away. So I just immediately stretch, pain goes away, the next day you're fine. I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Because normally if you just left it, the next day it just hurts and it's sore. He says, immediately start stretching all that out. He said, stretch it all out. And he said, you'll be good. I'm like, wow.
So you have like a real special drum throne then too?
Yeah, that's one of our singers in the band told me about that. It's just like one that goes right on the spine of your back. So like, especially because I'll have to do these gigs. I just talked to another band. I'll do these gigs like sometimes go to 6-7 hours.
Whoa, one gig?
One gig, and it might be continuous.
No breaks.
With no breaks. Huh. And they said that the other band is just talked to 2 other bands. They said they hire 2 drummers when they have to do that. But I think it might be. I don't know if it's a lot of times I don't. And most drummers don't want to play that. They don't want to play that long.
Yeah.
For me, I was like going, okay, let's see. I'm here to do it. Let's do it. Let's get it. Yeah. It's just like, all right, say, can you do this? Can you pull it off? And it's like it's the first couple of times you're just like, oh, and it's like it's not so much. You get tired and everything. But the thing that's killing me in my butt, just sitting on the thing and bouncing around. Man, you're just like, you got to, you try to stand up and you're crooked, and it's like, all right, somebody grab me, back in the day, It's like, yeah, because I got Vern Allison. He's like the singer with the Dells, and he's like a really amazing singer and a good drummer too. And he said a lot of times he looked at me, he says, man, you're nuts. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
You don't have anybody in the band that'll just spot you for a couple songs?
Oh yeah, Vern will. If I ask him to, he'll do it. I mean, and he's really good. He's really good. He's an amazing singer too.
Well, you got to take a pee break, don't you?
Oh yeah, they tease me all the time. They'll put cans. They'll put like coffee cans down there. And say, there you go. Make sure you aim right. Don't want no mess like last time. Or they'll get food. They're feeding the band, and I'm up there still playing. And it's only like there's gigs where they say drums they'll let everybody else in the band get a break, but me. I'll be the only one we continue with. And he can let the piano player go and keep the guitar player and the bass, and let the bass player go, and the guitar player would play bass to cover that, and the piano. So you still got a little rhythm section always going, but the drums you can't. That's the only thing that keeps going on.
The guys are going, oh man, this fillet over here is really great.
Oh yeah, they come by like, oh, this is really good, and they'll say, here, I brought some for you, and they set it just far enough where I can't get it. And then I have to throw stuff at them. I'll throw stuff at them. Or they'll try to hit me while I'm playing. They'll throw stuff at my head, and it's like and it makes the time goes by. You're laughing and having fun, But it's like anything. You go through that period where you're just like, oh, you're ready to die, and all of a sudden, boom, you come out of it, and then you just go again. It's like driving a car. You know, like after about 5-6 hours, you're ready to pass out. All of a sudden, you come out of it, and you're ready to go for another 6 hours. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what's the gig? I'm not sure. Like, what gig makes you play for that long?
Yeah, well,
nonstop?
it'll be like a big party for either it's a big outdoor party at a charity thing or a big reception. They'll have they want you to play 2 or 3 hours for dinner music, and then play 4 hours of dance music.
Okay.
And it's like, so you just played 3 hours of dinner music, you know, because they're doing all this big course meal. So you're playing jazz all the time and doing all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden they go in the dance set, and we go from one song right into the next. We don't even break in between songs. Wow. We'll just like do. So you actually get no break even in between a song, unless it's a ballad. That's a ballad. Then you see me scrambling for water and
Grabbing a sandwich.
yeah, some stuff like that. And I tell them, I said, don't set it anywhere near because that's the one thing I found out. You can't set anything near, because I'll set water and everything. But I said, no, don't put it there, because my sticks, when you're playing all over and playing on there, your sticks are chipping off, and you're getting wood chips all over. And everything, you got food covered in wood chips and water. As we look at the water, and it's looked like somebody just picked up a pile of wood and stuck it in there. You're like, ah. So you can't put nothing there. It looks like wood shop when you're done. It's just like, that's what, and I have to take my rug and the wood's flying everywhere. So I have to shake it out. But,
Chopping wood.
yeah.
Cool. Well, it looks like it's going to be fun next week.
Yeah, that's going to be nice.
Good.
Well, thanks, Larry.
All right, no problem, man.
Thanks for letting us record you here too. That's good.
Awesome,
That's
man.
good stuff, man.
Thanks again to Larry Ortega for taking time out from his busy schedule to share his knowledge with us. Larry will be presenting a clinic on programming MIDI like a drummer for the Digital Audio Recording Arts program at St. Francis in Joliet, Illinois, Wednesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. For more info, go to darausf.com. DARAUSF.com. The following instrumental was programmed by Larry Ortega using FL Studio and Addictive Drums.